I believe we were on page 41, at the very beginning, I believe. This is a very, very important passage here when Sri Aurobindo is going to tell us about the architect who builds in trance. And this is Hiranyagarbha. And Sri Aurobindo does comment on him, as well as the glossary and index of proper names in Sri Aurobindo's works. So let us begin. The immobile lips, the great surreal wings, the visage masked by superconscient sleep, the eyes with their closed lids that see all things, appeared of the architect who builds in trance. Immobile lips, they're immovable, cannot be moved. And the surreal wings, surreal is almost unreal, having the hallucinatory quality of a dream. So these immobile lips and the great surreal wings and the visage that's masked by superconscious sleep. Difficult for us to see it. And the eyes with their closed lids that see all things appeared of the architect who builds in trance. Sri Aurobindo, of course, capitalizes sleep because it's a superconscious sleep. And the architect. Let us get into the architect. In the synthesis of yoga, Sri Aurobindo writes, the self that creates all these forms is Hiranyagarbha, the luminous or creatively perceptive soul. And then in the future poetry, interestingly, he says, Hiranyagarbha, the luminous mind of dreams, looking through, and then we have brackets, gross forms created by Virat. Those forms, looking through those forms to see his own images behind them. And the technical, or somewhat technical definition given by the glossary and index of proper names in Sri Aurobindo's works writes, the golden embryo in Hindu cosmology, the name given to the golden-hued egg which floated on the surface of the primeval waters. In time, the egg divided into two parts. The golden top half of the shell became the heavens, and the silver lower half the earth. God, imaginative, and therefore creative. The spirit in the middle, or dream state, Lord of dream life, who takes from the ocean of subconsciously intelligent spiritual being the conscious psychic forces which he materializes or encases in various forms of gross living matter. Vladimir, would you want to say something a little bit further on Hiranyagarbha?
I think it's quite, yes, it's said everything about this Indo-European myth, yes, of the separation of heaven and earth, which is the oldest actually, and is found in all traditions in Europe and India and in the Far East. The separation of heaven and earth, of our mental and physical being by the vital in between. which unites them. And the union of three is the aim of the sacrifice. They have to come back together. We have to have unity of our will, heart, and mind, yes, which are the major constituents of the Gita also. So this synthesis is seen throughout in all different structures of consciousness, different times, different paradigms, in different ways.
Thank you. The original desire, capitalized, born in the void. Well, Sri Aurobindo has something to say about this void. A dictionary definition, which I rarely use when we have anything of Sri Aurobindo, because what is the need? But the dictionary definition does say some things here that are important. For example, the second definition is the state of non-existence. And it can be containing no matter, empty, without contents, vacant. But in the life divine, Sri Aurobindo says, the absolute cannot indeed be bound in its nature to manifest a cosmos of relations, but neither can it be bound not to manifest any cosmos. It is not itself a sheer emptiness. For a vacant absolute is no absolute. Our conception of a void or zero is only a conceptual sign of our mental inability to know or grasp it. It bears in itself some ineffable essentiality of all that is and all that can be. And since it holds in itself this essentiality and this possibility, it must also hold in itself, in some way of its absoluteness, either the permanent truth or the inherent, even if latent, realizable actuality of all that is fundamental to our or the world's existence. Very powerful ending. Something that, even if it's latent, is realizable as an actuality of all that is fundamental to our or the world's existence. And in the letters on yoga, he has two comments. The first, that the void is the condition of the self, capital S, free, wide, and silent. It seems void to the mind, but in reality, it is simply a state of pure existence and consciousness, sat and chit with shanti. And the other statement, by void is meant emptiness, clear of all contents, except existence, pure and simple. Without that, one cannot realize the silent Brahman. Wow. So this original desire born in the void peered out. He saw the hope that never sleeps, the feet that run behind a fleeting fate, the ineffable meaning of the endless dream. And this is very interesting, this passage, because, first of all, peered out is sort of looking narrowly or searchingly, trying to discern something. And the ineffable meaning of the endless dream. Well, ineffable in the dictionary is incapable of being expressed. It's something that's indescribable or even unutterable. Now, Sri Aurobindo did not capitalize ineffable in this line, and he didn't capitalize it because he's using it as an ineffable meaning of the endless stream. But still, I want to dwell a bit on the term the ineffable. Because Sri Aurobindo says in The Life Divine, it is this essential indeterminability of the Absolute that translates itself into our consciousness through the fundamental negating positives of our spiritual experience. The immobile, immutable self, the nirguna Brahman, the eternal without qualities, the pure, featureless one existence, both capitalized, the impersonal capitalized, the silence capitalized, void of activities, the non-being, the ineffable, and the unknowable. On the other side, it is the essence and source of all determinations. And this dynamic essentiality manifests to us through the fundamental affirming positives in which the Absolute equally meets us. For it is the self that becomes all things, the Saguna Brahman, the eternal with infinite qualities, the one who is the many, the infinite person, capital P, who is the source and foundation of all persons and personalities, the Lord of creation, the Word, the master of all works and action. It is that which being known, all is known. These affirmatives correspond to those negatives, for it is not possible in a supramental cognition to split asunder the two sides of the one existence. Even to speak of them as sides is excessive, for they are in each other. Their coexistence, or one existence, is eternal, and their powers, sustaining each other, found the self-manifestation of the infinite. And again in The Life Divine, he says, Ishvara is Brahman, the reality, self-spirit, revealed as possessor, enjoyer of his own self-existence, creator of the universe, and one with it, pantheos, and yet superior to it, the eternal, the infinite, the ineffable, the divine transcendence. Each word Sri Aurobindo capitalizes. And lastly, he says, in the synthesis of yoga, a transcendent bliss, and he almost always capitalizes bliss when he's speaking of the ultimate reason of creation. A transcendent bliss, unimaginable and inexpressible by the mind and speech, is the nature of the ineffable, that broods immanent and secret in the whole universe and in everything in the universe. Its presence is described as a secret ether of the bliss of being, of which the scripture says that if this were not, none could for a moment breathe or live. And this spiritual bliss is here also in our hearts. Last time we did not, I feel we didn't finish the question on the mind as completely as I would like to. So here we have the line, hardly for a moment glimpsed, viewless to mind. And Sri Aurobindo capitalizes mind. And I'd like to share his words from the Letters on Yoga, and the life divine on the mind, so we can clear that up. He says the mind, and he capitalizes the M, in the ordinary use of the word, covers indiscriminately the whole consciousness. For man is a mental being and mentalizes everything. But in the language of this yoga, the words mind and mental are used to connote specially the part of the nature which has to do with cognition and intelligence, with ideas, with mental thought or perceptions, the reactions of thought to things, with the truly mental movements and formations, mental vision and will, etc., that are part of his intelligence. And he has two quotes in the Life Divine that I found very useful. Mind, in its essence, is a consciousness which measures, limits, cuts out forms of things from the indivisible whole, and contains them as if each were a separate integer. And then secondly, he says, mind is an instrument of analysis and synthesis, but not of essential knowledge. Its function is to cut out something vaguely from the unknown thing, capital T, thing in itself, and call this measurement or delimitation of it the whole, and again to analyze the whole into its parts, which it regards as separate mental objects. So hopefully that has helped people who wanted to know a little more of the mind. Now we continue, and let's go from the first lines. The immobile lips, the great surreal wings, the visage masked by superconscious sleep, the eyes with their closed lids that see all things, appeared of the architect who builds in trance. The original desire born in the void peered out. He saw the hope that never sleeps, the feet that run behind a fleeting fate, the ineffable meaning of the endless stream. He saw, he is Ashwapati, Sri Aurobindo. Hardly for a moment glimpsed, viewless to mind, as if a torch held by a power of God. What did he see? The radiant world of the everlasting truth, glimmered like a faint star bordering the night. Above the golden overmind's shimmering ridge. So we have some things to discuss here. To glimmer is to dim or intermittently flicker. It can be even a flash of light, but it's more shining faintly, twinkling, shimmering. Above the golden overmind's shimmering ridge. And this is the first time we have come across the overmind, and it will take me probably to the end of our talk to go through the overmind from Sri Aurobindo. If there are any questions prior to that, please ask.
So is the sleep that he talks about here in Sanskrit, is that the yoga nidra that they talk about, Vladimir?
I don't think so. Yoga nidra is a specific device or method to go deep into your, this sleep is something more fundamental. Yeah.
Definitely. But
Thank you.
Speaking about Hiranyagarbha here, whose sleep is an all-perceiving vision. So the overmind. In the letters on yoga, he has 2 or 3 or more quotes. It's very interesting. Even in the letters on Savitri, he has quotes. So let's go through, first of all, the letters on yoga. The overmind is a sort of delegation from the supermind. This is a metaphor only, which supports the present evolutionary universe in which we live, here in matter. If supermind were to start here from the beginning as the direct creative power, a world of the kind we see now would be impossible. It would have been full of the divine light from the beginning. There would be no involution in the inconscience of matter. Consequently, no gradual striving evolution of consciousness in matter. A line is therefore drawn between the higher half of the universe of consciousness, parada, and the lower half, aparada. The higher half is constituted of Sat, Chit, Ananda, Mahas, the supramental. The lower half of mind, life, matter. This line is the intermediary overmind, which, though luminous itself, keeps from us the full, indivisible, supramental light. Depends on it indeed, but in receiving it, divides, distributes, breaks it up into separate aspects, powers, multiplicities of all kinds, each of which it is possible by a further diminution of consciousness, such as we reach in mind, to regard as the soul or the chief truth, and all the rest as subordinate or contradictory to it. Now, this is extremely important because Sri Aurobindo is telling us that even in the duality, and only in the supramental, there is no duality. But he does say in the letters on yoga, again, the overmind is the highest of the planes below the supramental. That should be clear to all of us. In its nature and law, the overmind is a delegate of the supermind consciousness. It's delegate to the ignorance. Or we might speak of it as a protective double, a screen of dissimilar similarity, through which the supermind can act indirectly on an ignorance whose darkness could not bear or receive the direct impact of a supreme light. He continues in the Life Divine. The overmind is a principle of cosmic truth and a vast and endless catholicity is its very spirit. Its energy is an all-dynamism, as well as a principle of separate dynamisms. It is a sort of inferior supermind, although it is concerned predominantly not with absolutes, but with what might be called the dynamic potentials or pragmatic truths of reality, or with absolutes mainly for their power of generating pragmatic or creative values, although, too, its comprehension of things is more global than integral, since its totality is built up of global wholes, or constituted by separate, independent realities, uniting or coalescing together. And although the essential unity is grasped by it and felt to be the basic of things and pervasive in their manifestation, but no longer as in the supermind, their intimate and ever-present secret, their dominating continent, the overt, constant builder of the harmonic whole of their activity and nature. And in the letters on yoga, he says, the overmind sees calmly, steadily, in great masses and large extensions of space and time and relation. Globally, it creates and acts in the same way. It is the world of the great gods, the divine creators. And in his letters on Savitri, he writes, the overmind is essentially a spiritual power. Mind in it surpasses its ordinary self and rises and takes its stand on a spiritual foundation. It embraces beauty and sublimates it. It has an essential aesthesis, which is not limited by rules and canons. It sees a universal and an eternal beauty, while it takes up and transforms all that is limited and particular. It is, besides, concerned with things other than beauty or aesthetics. It is concerned especially with truth and knowledge, or rather with a wisdom that exceeds what we call knowledge. Its truth goes beyond truth of fact and truth of thought, even the higher thought, which is the first spiritual range of the thinker. It has the truth of spiritual thought, spiritual feeling, spiritual sense, and at its highest, the truth that comes by the most intimate spiritual touch, or by identity. Ultimately, truth and beauty come together and coincide, but in between there is a difference. Overmind in all its dealings puts truth first. It brings out the essential truth, and parentheses, and truths, in things, and also its infinite possibilities. It brings out even the truth that lies behind falsehood and error. It brings out the truth of the inconscient and the truth of the superconscient, and all that lies in between. And then he has, because he's writing this to Amal Kiran, when it speaks through poetry, this remains its first essential quality. A limited aesthetical artistic aim is not its purpose. And the last writing from Letters on Yoga, in the overmind, the truth of supermind, which is whole and human and harmonious, enters into a separation into parts, many truths fronting each other, and moved each to fulfill itself, to make a world of its own, or else to prevail, or take its share in worlds made of a combination of various separated truths and truth forces. And we have more to go, but I believe my time is up. And it's an awful lot that we've had to absorb today about the golden overmind and its shimmering ridge. And next week we will continue with this description, and it is so beautiful. And Sri Aurobindo Asrapati here is experiencing all of this in this book of beginnings, the third canto, the Yoga of the Soul's Release. Thank you all, and namaste. May the week be a good week for all of us. Much harmony, peace, and truth. Thank you.